It feels like walking on a very thick, wet sponge. In the right time of year, what it sounds like is mosquitoes. You hear this constant high-pitched whine of several hundred mosquitoes circling your head. There's a lot of big wildlife, including moose, caribou, muskox, black bears, brown bears, and wolves.
We've come to Alaska to look for Arctic bumblebees. We had a team of specialists, someone from biology, someone from botany, another person from entomology. And starting out, we left Fairbanks and drove on a pretty developed road. But as we got into the Brooks Range, the road becomes less well-paved.
The Dalton Highway was built in the 70s for semi-trucks hauling freight up to the oil field. It's a dirt road for over most of its length. The road climbs about 4,000 feet in a pretty short distance, and it's very steep with a lot of curves. Some sections there's a guardrail, some sections there's not. Anything other than perfect conditions, and you really have to be careful.
The first few days of the trip we were camping out. We stayed out in these pretty rustic, open campgrounds.
Growing up in Alaska, one of the things that I got used to is the full 24 hours a day of sunlight. The constant daylight makes you feel like you have a lot of energy.
I had a lot of trouble sleeping. It takes some acclimation to get used to life in a place where the sun doesn't actually ever set. 4 or 5 days later, we arrived at Toolik Field Station. They had beds to sleep in, sauna, showers. Arriving at Toolik was definitely a bit of a relief after a few days on the road. We would drive until we would see a patch of flowers. We'd stop, grab our nets, and then go see if we could collect different bee species. I was starting to feel a little bit nervous because we'd been collecting a lot of bumblebees and we weren't finding the species that I really wanted to find. Bombus polaris is the only pollinating bee that lives in the high Arctic. It's bigger, it's fuzzier, it tends to have a pale orange color. It's able to warm its body temperature higher than other bumblebees, and that lets it live in a place that almost no other insects can live. They're dealing with the most rapidly changing climatic conditions. This place is warming faster than anywhere else on Earth, and so we need to understand how this bee has evolved to live in the Arctic, and then we need to understand how that relationship might be threatened by climate change. We finally found our first specimen of polaris on July 4th. I felt very excited because this is a bee that we've been looking for more than a week. No one's done any extensive work on the function of this bee in the Arctic. We'll be studying the DNA of these bumblebees, and we want to understand how these bumblebee populations are being impacted by climate change. This work is going to help us understand how we can conserve biodiversity, and in particular the pollinators that help us produce most of the foods that we eat. So this research is helping us keep the promise of advancing food security in the world.